Hey folks, Volume 2, second edition of Let's Be Blunt, broadcasting, well, from the Foes headquarters, which is Charlotte CBD Distribution Center here in North Charlotte. And brought to you by, on a weekly basis from this point forward, by Hemp Retailers Association as well as Charlotte CBD. 3 locations, 2419 Central Avenue in Charlotte, 610 Hardin Street in Columbia, South Carolina, and 505 East Statesville Avenue in Mooresville, North Carolina. What's so special about Charlotte CBD? We're going to talk about that here today. Mike Sims, big co-host, yes, the official guru aficionado of Charlotte CBD.
Yes, sir.
The mouth.
The pretty face.
Passionate guy right here. Our guest today, you want to introduce him?
Sure, yeah. We here at Charlotte CBD, we have for a while been testing our products, and we're going to talk about how that came about, but we have the folks here today that help bring that about, and we'll let them tell more about their story and how it all came about, but we thought it would be awesome to have them on. Again, we had them on our radio show when it was a radio show.
Right. And
we're going to have them tell their story again and how they got involved and how this industry chose them. But we have Todd and Veronica Griffin, and they're from Wingate University originally. But we'll let you guys take it from there. And
well, I want to talk about why they're here.
Right.
See, we're in the Wild West, folks. Yeah, you can tell. No, we're in the Wild West. And what I mean by that is CBD cannabidiol, as we know it. Isn't that correct? Let's say it correctly. Cannabidiol, you've heard all the health benefits. It's good, it's this, it's that. A lot of concerns. And we kind of want to bring, not kind of, we want to bring truth to you. Every week, this show's about truth and the real reality behind the bigger story, and that's cannabis in general. We've been lied to really bad, and I'm sick of it. So what we're going to do here today is clarify why Charlotte CBD tests all their products and what's going on out there with all the CBD oils. And I think there needs to be clarity and more, more knowledge, more facts brought to the table. And we've got a fact. We got facts, good facts. Todd here, you're a scientist, big scientist. Little history.
Sure, absolutely. So I've spent most of my career as a scientist working in various industries, including academia, including government. I was a scientist for the U.S. Department of Navy. And
well, you've seen a lot of quagmires.
I have seen my fair share of red tape and
total BS.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm sorry.
That's a correct characterization. And now I am working at Wingate University as an educator there in the chemistry and physics department. And just recently, my daughter Veronica and I started a business called G2 Analytical, where we basically took some research we were doing at the university and spun it out into a business. And we've been partnered with Charlotte CBD, and they have been very encouraging to us in terms of encouraging us to continue doing the testing and looking into some of the claims that are being made. And they've opened our eyes to what is out there on the market.
Add more validity to the bigger picture.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. All right, cannabis. That's what we're talking about, folks. A cultivar of cannabis. Hemp, marijuana, call it what you want. Loaded, unloaded, THC, not. But regardless, it's cannabis. Now, today we're in a large transition as far as the legalization of the marijuana, THC cannabis. But right now, we're focusing predominantly on CBD oil, cannabidiol. What are the benefits? What are the crutches out there? What's the purity, the quality all about? Where did you get started in cannabis? Mike said it kind of came to you.
It did, and I'd like Veronica to chime in because she came up with the idea.
Yeah. So I actually went to Wingate University. So I graduated in May of 2018 with my bachelor's of science in chemistry. And we had a family member come to us. Her daughter at 18 months was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And when they went in to do the surgery to remove the tumor, she ended up developing a seizure disorder. And so they put her on, the big pharma anti-seizure medication, and it was a struggle for her. She was very young. She was only about 2 at this time when they actually put her on the medication. And the side effects were just a lot for her 2-year-old body to handle. And so her mom,
2 years old.
2 years old,
Wow.
and she was on the seizure medication. And so her mom, not wanting to see her daughter go through that, decided to find a natural kind of remedy for her. So this was a couple years ago. So at that time, the big CBD brand was Charlotte's Web. That was kind of like the top of the pyramid at that time. And so her mom bought some for her, but obviously, at that time, this was even more Wild West than it is now.
Right, yeah. We come a little ways here.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so her mom was like, well, I want to know what's in what I'm giving my daughter. And so she came to us. My dad, he's a classically trained analytical chemist. I'm still in training, but I'm getting there. And so that's kind of what we do as analytical chemists. We test what's in things. So she brought it to us, and she's like, can you tell me what's in this? And we were like, of course we can tell you what's in it. And so at that time she approached us, I actually needed a senior honors thesis to graduate. And so we decided, why don't we turn it into a research project? So, we'll look at every bottle she got, we tested. So we tested every batch she purchased. And then we actually started, and this was kind of how we got into it with Charlotte CBD, we started purchasing our own products. What can we find that's on the shelves, compare it to the label claims, compare it to other brands, how does
So
it
you
vary?
just went there.
Yeah, so we
Oh,
literally,
yeah.
one day, it was in like January, one day we walked in and we were like, well, we're going to buy some stuff. And they had noticed us there a couple times because we've been there to look around because we were like a dispensary. That's not something you see on the East Coast. So we were definitely interested. So we went and walked around, and eventually someone was like, well, you guys are in here a lot. What are you doing? And we told them. And so then they went and, told Mike and Dan and Lindsay, and we just kind of hooked up and started working together. And so they've helped us grow, and we're able to help them make sure that they're putting, quality stuff on there.
And part of the the reason for the show is also to reach out to other hemp retailers, other hemp growers.
Yeah.
I mean, as this thing grows, to give more resource to the whole playing field out there. And I'm glad y'all came on the show today because this is really necessary.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it started when an employee came to me and told me what they were doing. My immediate thought was, man, that gets expensive having to buy all the samples.
Oh, yeah.
We immediately thought, man, this, because we went through the same thing. We wondered what is in all this. And a lot of stuff come with testing results, but we would notice that some of them would be a year or two old. So, and a lot of our theories came to be true. A lot of stuff that we thought was not up to par when we had it tested was not, and it seemed like a lot of it was. But yeah, that it was a blessing. I think they were brought to us by
Universe works in mysterious ways.
It was, but ever since then, it's these guys are all up in the industry now, man. It's we work with several people that speak highly of them, but it's nice to bring that unknown, that bring validity to the unknown and to what's out there. But it's been a great partnership so far, but it's been amazing.
Well, I know you test the product, all products at Charlotte CBD. What have you found out in the marketplace, though, overall?
So that's a good question. So we started testing. When we started testing, we went through a period of time where we were getting results that did not match with the label. And we were, to be quite honest, from my background in a more regulated environment, I was kind of surprised by that because I'm used to pharmaceuticals being fairly true to label, and I was seeing stuff that looked like we had nothing in it, tested completely nothing. So I doubted us. That's the first thing, the simplest answer is the most obvious. So we obviously did something wrong. So we did a lot of validation testing, and we went through and actually validated our method so we can ensure we're getting the correct results. And then we actually started compiling lists and sharing it. Every couple months we'll sit down with the folks at Charlotte CBD, and we'll just go over the mountainous data that we have, and we can see the products that test very true to label, which we see a lot. We see the majority of them that do not test to label test low. So you're not getting the amount in the package that is on the label.
Right.
But also of concern is we see some that actually test very high. And the reason that's important is because if you're trying to take this or some condition, you want to know the exact amount so that you can reproduce that amount every time.
When you say high, Todd, what do you mean by high? You know, so the
Sure.
listeners will understand some are low, some are high. What's meant by that?
Sure. So the industry standard is anything about 20% of the label, plus or minus 20%, which is a fairly large range to
It
begin
is.
with.
That's it.
But we've seen stuff as low as 5 and 10% of label. So if it says it has 100 milligrams in it, it might only have 5 milligrams. We've also seen that same 100 milligram bottle contain 300 milligrams, so it has 3 times as much in it. And again, you don't want either of those situations. You want to have it very consistent from bottle to bottle so that when you find the right dose for you, you can maintain that and you're not going up or down.
Right. Gotcha. Wow. But do you test outside Charlotte CBD to other stores?
We do. We also test with a lot of farmers and processors.
Okay.
So we've been
The raw product.
The raw product.
Before
Yep,
okay.
absolutely.
Substantiation before it ever goes out. That's great.
That's right, absolutely. So in a more regulated environment, the processors, they would inspect 100% of the incoming material, raw material, and then they would process it, and then they would inspect it again or test it again before it goes to market. So there's several different stages you need to have tested. One, the incoming raw material needs to be what you think it is. And so you need to know the potency of the flower, you need to know the contamination levels of the flower. The cannabis is an awesome plant, it's very adaptive, and so therefore it'll scavenge stuff up out of the soil, and so things like heavy metals and pesticides and just naturally occurring things.
That's interesting because I know I've done a lot of research on the hemp plant. Wow. What an amazing plant it is to humanity and the well-being of the planet. But, you know, and what some of the reasons it's so darn good, it'll decontaminate the soil.
That's right.
I mean, it's got so many benefits and it's incredible. But as it decontaminates the soil, you know, you're testing for heavy metals and all that, and the plant absorbs that.
That's correct. Yeah. So you got to make sure it's safe.
Oh, sure.
So and that's a factor of the environment it's grown in.
Mm-hmm.
But also naturally occurring things like mold and mildew. They can produce toxins, which are carcinogen. So you need to really make sure that your incoming material is safe coming in. Then while you're processing it, you know, the minute I walked in here, I started shedding DNA and all kinds of other things.
Sure.
And so if you're not in a very clean environment, you could potentially introduce contamination during processing. So at the end of that, you want to make sure that your product is clean. And then, of course, you want to make sure that your label claims are accurate. So testing goes from essentially the seed to the time it hits the shelf. And there should be several points in there where it's tested.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And you've done a lot of testing with Charlotte CBD for purity to make sure all the products they sell are what they're supposed to be.
That's right. We check potency. That's really the main thing that we're looking for when we see a bottle on the shelf. We're looking to make sure it has the right potency level.
Right. That's nice. That's great.
That's
Another
important
benefit.
too, because you know what we found a lot of times is a lot of our customers were coming in and they were, you know, we would talk to people and say, hey, what do you think about CBD, or have you tried CBD? And they, of course I did, but I tried it and it didn't do anything for me, or I didn't like it. And that's kind of an issue in this business, because you really, some people, you only get 1 or 2 shots, maybe usually just 1 shot to give this stuff a try. And when they would try it, and when you only have a small percentage of what's in the bottle, they're not going to feel or get the relief they're looking for. So, you know, that's one of the things we encourage people from the beginning. It's through them, we're allowed to do this now. We have the ability to. We tell people to bring in what they've been taking, so we can take a sample of it, so we can see what they've been taking. But it's shocking, and some of the larger, better known brands out there are some of the worst offenders from what we found. We hope to have start posting these results through our website,
COTCBD,
or through letsbeblunt.org. So the public can see these things, because it's important. You know, it's you want to get what you pay for, if nothing else. But
well, what has concerned me is, you know, I go into the stores and I'll just hang out and I'll talk to the clientele, you know, the customers. And for one thing, it's just amazing the stories and the benefits, you know, I hear. Unbelievable. But it's also discouraging when I talk to people, and I didn't do anything for me. You know, and not that I want everybody to start doing CBD oil. I want health and wellness. Health and wellness for all. When you're healthy, you're wealthy in today's world. And I think that's something we should all aim for. And there's a lot of pharmaceuticals that will make you more sick than it will better. So, but CBD oil and CBD cannabidiol, cannabis, it's a 100% plant.
Sure.
Plant-based nutrition, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So you know, as we in this industry know right now, testing is a hot topic through the USDA has now put out what their wish list of what they would like to see, their testing ramifications and everything. Any thoughts on that? How about the 0.03% total THC threshold versus the Delta 9? And maybe your thoughts on that, but also if you guys could break down exactly how testing's done and the different methods, and you can explain
Sure.
in layman's terms, as simple as possible for people like me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So first of all, the FDA, I think you hit it on the head when you said it's a wish list.
Yeah, right.
It's very challenging to come up with a new set of requirements. And so I don't envy them to have to be in their shoes and do what they're trying to do. And they're being very aggressive about it, which you know, I applaud them for their effort of trying to get their hands around it. I think there's a lot of room for improvement in that. And so what we've seen historically, and that's that hemp has been defined as 0.3% by dry mass THC or less, and there's not been a lot of further defining definition of that. And so one of the things that the FDA is trying to do is, you talk about total THC. Well, the plant itself does not make THC naturally. It makes THCA, which is a different compound. It is the acid version of THC. It is not psychotropic, meaning you do not get the euphoric high. But when you heat it, it will decarboxylate, and that's probably a term you've heard or used.
Used it last week, decarboxylate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the acid comes off, and then you have the THC, which is the psychotropic component. Well, when you measure the flower out of the ground, you typically find very low concentrations of delta 9 THC, but you might find much higher concentrations of THCA. And so the new rules would require you to test for both and do a mathematical combination of those and report that number, which then makes me question whether or not the 0.3% is a realistic target. There's been many studies that say that anything less than 1% is probably not going to have a psychotropic effect. So, you know, I think there's a lot of room for input on the FDA side of those regulations. So I'm actually part of two other industry associations, which are called AOAC, which is the Association of Analytical Chemists, and then ASTM, which is a standards and technology group that makes standards. They are both a group of scientists who are working simultaneously to make regulations and SOPs and things of that nature for how to test. And so I'm hoping that with all of the scientific input, we end up coalescing to something that's reasonable.
So your side of the fence in the analyticals of the cannabis transition, you might say, or prohibition, whatever, is still changing as well.
Every day, and people's interpretation of rules and regulation varies minute by minute.
Wow, yeah.
Wow, to add to the confusion.
To add to the confusion. It's
how many other labs, and this crazy question, I don't know, as you know, at this point in the game, how many other labs are doing the analytics?
Well, in the state of North Carolina, there's not that many, to be quite honest with you.
I wouldn't think there was.
There's one lab who does the state testing. They also do private testing as well. And then there's maybe 2 or 3 other labs in the state, including us. In the country, especially as you move into places where they have recreational and medical marijuana,
Sure.
You see more density of testing labs.
Cool. So we're on the cutting edge in North Carolina as well.
And the thing is, something that's going to, you know, it's not really a requirement right now, which is terrifying. But I think we can all agree that we think it should be, but we think it should be proper requirements.
Well, yeah. Frankly, I don't want the government to control it. But that ain't going to happen because they want to control everything.
So there's a bit of controversy too in the whole testing process. Do you guys want to touch on that? So for those out there listening, it's not really like you just go up and look at it or scan it and it tells you. There's a process to it. You'll talk about the different ways to actually test it, the machine that does it.
Sure.
Yeah. So I do a lot of the on-hand lab stuff, just because Todd does have his day job of working in academia, so I'm kind of the one that's in the lab most of the time. So the method that we use to test the potency and look at the cannabinoids is called HPLC. It's high pressure liquid chromatography. So basically what that does is it takes a solvent or a liquid, and every compound and everything that is made up of elements, it has a different polarity. So based on what it's made up of, will like certain things more than others. And so what it does is that liquid goes through what we call column, and Todd has a good explanation kind of what polarity means. So when him and my mom go shopping, and they're going through the mall, his pathway through the mall is definitely more direct. He goes to the store he wants to go to, comes out. My mom goes in, she stops here, she stops there, she stops at this one, she gets a snack. So, she takes a lot longer to get her. And so that's kind of the analogy we give people to kind of give them a more layman's terms explanation. Some things are going to get to the end very quickly and get out of the column, so we call it. And then some other things are going to take longer and longer. And so that's kind of what we've seen with the different cannabinoids. Like right now we look at like CBD, CBDA, THC, THCA, CBG, CBN, CBC. There's hundreds of them that we could look at, but that's, those are kind of like the ones everyone's looking at right now. And so they'll actually show up on our column at different times. So we're able to see, all right, if we see something at this time, and it comes up on our computer screen, so we have a program that can interpret the data that comes from our instrument. And so we see, okay, this product has something at this time, so we know from what we've seen before that that's CBD, or at this time is CBG. And so we're kind of able to tell that difference. And all the different products, take different ways to kind of digest them. So for like the flower material, we have to put that into an alcohol and kind of take out the cannabinoids from the flower. For oils, we just kind of dilute them because they're already in that liquid. So like I said before, it's high pressure liquid, so everything that goes in has to be a liquid. And then with like stuff like edibles, we actually separate the cannabinoids from the edibles themselves because cannabinoids like fat, they're very fat soluble. So we actually have to kind of force them out of that fat that's in the gummy or the brownie or whatever it is and into something that we can analyze.
So the big controversy is GC.
Yeah,
right?
So like the state lab that does all the testing, we use what's called a GCMS, which is called a gas chromatograph mass spectrometer. And so what that does is it takes a liquid and turns it into a gas and analyzes it that way. But obviously to turn a liquid into a gas, you have to heat it. Mm-hmm. And so that's a big controversy, especially with the different panels that Todd's on, because they're saying, all right, well, what is more effective? Should we just do gas chromatograph? Should we do liquid? Should it be heated, not heated? But obviously if you put it through the gas and it's heated, it can't actually differentiate between the non-decarboxylated and the decarboxylated.
It can activate your THC.
Exactly. So it can activate. So now, especially with kind of the understanding now, looking at it, you can't tell the difference between the carboxylated and the decarboxylated. So obviously, your total is going to be much higher, mostly, than if you were just looking at the Delta 9.
And this is no surprise. There's plenty of papers, scientific papers that I could go get that would tell you that when you run it on that particular instrument that the state is using, that decarboxylation happens. So it's artificially going to inflate your THC numbers. And when you think about where their testing has come from in the past, it's been for any presence of THC was bad, right? Because it was illegal, right? So
Schedule 1 narcotic.
That's right. Yep. So since it's a Schedule 1 narcotic, them using a GC wasn't an issue because they're looking for any trace at all. And so that's a perfectly valid method of using it. But now that you've got something that's legal at a certain percentage, they need to be able to differentiate the two, and that's where the controversy comes from.
And the big controversy is hemp versus THC cannabis, correct?
Correct. Yep. That's
And
where the government draws that line. And from what I've seen and heard, 0.03 is an arbitrary number anyway. I think it was just kind of pulled out of the air. And that's where the government says that's the line. From here back is hemp, from here forward is what we know as marijuana. And it's very controversial. And you can imagine everybody in the industry is not very happy about the total THC limit, where everybody was hoping for more of the Delta 9, because and we're all pushing for probably a 1% or less anyway. But it's very controversial, and it's going to affect a lot of farmers. And the only flower I know of out there that would fall is a GMO strain that's very a few people have out there, and it
GMO.
Yeah.
GMO, whenever you hear that word, is a real bad word.
Yeah, it's already been genetically modified to not produce hardly any THC, but it's as a connoisseur, it doesn't taste very well smoking it, and it doesn't produce a lot of the cannabinoids I think that are imperative for humans.
Well, it's screwed with. It's
Right.
been genetically modified.
Correct.
As
So
we said on the first podcast.
I think it also sets up certain groups to really reap the most benefit from those strains. So, it's as everything in this industry, there's a lot of more politics behind it than science. And hopefully scientists can get their voice heard here and really be listened to. Jim got it there. So, but that's a big controversy that we're going through constantly, not only with the state, now with the federal level. But we do need some of these standards put in place. So it's a double-edged sword. Being in the industry, it's like, well, we need some help, but maybe not this kind of help. Yeah, and because what's terrifying, and I'm sure you guys can agree, there are plenty of farmers out there that grew crops this year that had nothing tested. And they grew it and they cut it down and they let it sit in piles and dry, and it grew mold and mildew, and dogs walked by and peed on it, and you name it. Insects are growing through it and everything else, and that stuff's going to hit the shelves like everything else.
Yeah,
and that's scary.
We're big on Instagram. That's kind of like our main area of reaching out to people, and we actually saw somebody that we follow post. They didn't post it, but they shared somebody else's posting. They were selling their flour, and they were specifically saying 1% mold.
Oh, wow. That's it? Just 1%.
Just 1% is fine.
It'll hurt you to smoke it.
And if you're remediating the mold,
Yeah.
if you're buying it and remediating the mold for isolate, that's fine.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
or if you're putting it in
do you know where that's going to end up?
Right.
It's not traceable.
Correct.
It's weird.
Now, as we talked to Todd and Veronica with G2 Analyticals, we're going to their lab in a future show to let you see firsthand how it all works. We were going to do that today, but we wanted the facts beforehand, and things are moving rather rapidly in this whole transition process. But the purity, the quality of what you buy for health reasons, and why would you buy it for any other reason? I mean, isn't that what everybody's interested in, the health benefits? So you want to know what you're buying is pure, good quality, and it's what the label says it is. And that's what we're dealing with here, is the truth there again. And we want the truth out there, not so you'll go to Charlotte CBD stores, just so you'll know. And there's a way you can get good product. And there are other stores out there that I'm sure use you guys, or is that the case?
Well, retailers not as much, just kind of from like what we've seen. It's becoming a bigger thing now, but definitely in the beginning, retailers are kind of at the point where they're thinking, all right, well, we need to trust what we're getting from the distributors and the sellers and the producers. We should be able to trust what they're giving us. And so I definitely think, especially with Charlotte CBD, they kind of took that step to be a retailer that is going to put more into, all right, I'm still going to get it tested because, yeah, I should be able to trust what I'm getting from the people that make it, but that doesn't necessarily mean I can. So it definitely is a little more rare for the retailers to be the ones that are coming to us for testing.
Well, that's one of the reasons we brought you to the table as well, because we hope for their own benefits that they would reach out and get more testing done. And that's another reason, I believe, Mike. What's this Hemp Retailers Association all about? I mean, that's a way to get a group of.
And again, it's a way. We formed the Hemp Retailers Association, realizing that a lot of these laws and regulations do need to be created. but we realized that someone educated on the subject, maybe not even myself, people smarter than myself, need to be at the table when these decisions are being made. And a lot of times these folks are making these decisions have no clue what we're talking about.
They're totally ignorant to the fact.
Completely ignorant. They're elected officials that have
we're talking about lawmakers.
Yeah, they have varied backgrounds in all different types of fields, and really, I can speak for North Carolina. Very few of them have any knowledge about this field in the background. So ultimately, we want to assist the lawmakers and those pioneers that are out there fighting with us and other industries. Other organizations within this industry. We want to work together to make sure our voice is being heard and proper regulations being put forth. But that's why we started the Hemp Retailers Association. But to get back to talking about the testing, it's most testing that you get with these products shows, it was tested, it was fine, but it was usually something that was tested in the beginning. And what people don't realize is all of this is batches, and every batch is different because every plant's different. You can grow the exact same strain of plant clones side by side, and they're going to grow different at different levels, different cannabinoids in the same exact environment. So as you buy these products, if you might have it, taking it forever and it's fine, but as these companies grow, they have to start sourcing from other farms in other areas, and the batches change and the cannabinoid profiles change and all that. So I think that's why it's so important to set these standards and to keep testing to make sure they adhere to the standards. So it's very scary, and I would love to see more retailers get into the testing. I think they would be shocked to see, because I think ultimately I don't think retailers are trying to be menacing. I think they've been lied to just like we have. Oh, it's fine, it's great, here's the test results. So just as we were shocked on some, but there's a lot we weren't shocked on because we knew. A lot of companies spend a lot of money on marketing and not necessarily quality of product.
Welcome to America.
Welcome to America. But right now, the terrifying part of this industry is we can put whatever we want in these products and nothing's stopping it. And that, and luckily we are an honest group of folks because we're consumers as well, and we're good people, but not everyone is. And whether it be knowingly or unknowingly, it's real easy to have an epidemic in these issues, as we've seen with the vape cartridges recently and the vitamin E acetate additive. That a very small amount of people, one company basically was doing on the black market, and affected a great amount of people quickly. So, that can happen very quickly, and that's why we have to have these regulations. It's terrifying. We can, by the time we figure out what happened, a lot of people could be affected.
Absolutely, in a very short time, actually.
Yeah, so moving forward, they're talking about getting a DEA certification. Are y'all up on that? Y'all something that you think is going to be a hard process, easy process, something you're interested in?
I mean, definitely something you'd be interested in, but I mean, we're already, they haven't put forth those standards, but we've actually been looking into other certifications from the DEA to start testing more products. Sure. And even that's just a process. So
lots of red tape, I imagine.
Yeah, and so I'm sure then adding that to the table is going to definitely add some regulations to go through.
So there's a state level license that you have to have as well as the federal. So it's a two-step process.
I bet you there'll be even more to it by the time it comes around.
Absolutely.
We're in the Wild West, folks.
Right.
We're on a really big journey, an adventure with all this. And can I go to the flower now? Sure. You want to talk about the flower, the differentiation?
Well, sure, go for
it. Todd here has got some background in that, and I want to bring it up because more BS, call that bullshit from our legislature. Excuse me, but let's call it the way it is.
Right.
There's a big controversy right now. They're wanting to outlaw flower, smokable hemp, and that's what you see right here in the container, right there. Smokable hemp, right there.
Right.
Okay, that's legal. Yep, looks like a joint. Well, it is a joint with hemp flower. Well, if a cop pulls you over and you got hemp flower in the front seat next to you, and he says, "What's that?" He says, "That's hemp bud." He doesn't know the difference whether it's hemp bud or regular marijuana. And they're claiming there's no way of differentiating. Todd, what's the take on that, big guy?
Well, that's a lie. Plain and simple. I don't know how else to say it. As we were talking earlier, I mentioned my background as a scientist in the U.S. Navy, and I've worked for Homeland Security and others. as a science advisor. And we actually live right across the border in South Carolina, and South Carolina Attorney General issued a letter basically outlawing, in one letter outlawing smokable hemp. And I was shocked as a scientist because the wording that was in there was incorrect. The information that was in there was not correct. Scientifically correct. And
why does this go on? I mean, damn.
It should not go on because there are a lot of really smart scientists who work for the state and the federal government who should be advising these politicians who do not have a background in science, the Attorney General who does not have a background in science, to make sure that at least whatever they are doing has a foundation in science. And at the moment, we're being told that there's in the state of North Carolina, we're being told there's absolutely no way to distinguish hemp from marijuana. And the state of Florida, the state of Virginia, the state of Washington, D.C., have all adopted a product that was not even developed in the U.S., it was developed over in Europe, but that can tell the difference. And so, I think that's one of my hobby horses is why aren't the scientists who are employed by the state speaking up and saying, look,
I know why that is. I know why.
Well,
I've read stories, I've talked to scientists. They're told and controlled what to say, or they won't work.
Well, I certainly understand that, and I think what's frustrating to me as a scientist is let's have the discussion about why we really don't want to hear. Let's not pawn it off and say, oh, it's scientifically impossible when it is scientifically possible. If the problem is we're going to put officers out of work, or if the problem is we're going to put
the drug dogs
out of work, if the problem is we think it's a gateway drug, let's have that discussion. Let's not muddy the waters when it is absolutely true that we can tell the difference between marijuana and hemp.
Right. And we came to Todd and we started fighting for this, and he very eloquently and very professional, like he did, put together a very nice report on exactly how this is possible, and very affordably so. And in the middle of that, we realized that there are already tests across the world and in the U.S. that are very effective and can work. But in Raleigh, their response was, it's not FDA approved. Well, of course not, because the FDA doesn't want it approved. So we all know what's behind it, but it's very frustrating. And you're right, say what's really the problem, not, because every problem they presented, we presented a solution. And really, I don't think there's a solution they can't find a problem for. So, and ultimately, I think it comes down, it was a way for some officers, I won't throw everybody in it, it's a low piece of hanging fruit. It was an easy bounty. It was easy to get access to someone's car that may not know the law, someone that maybe is not privy to laws or have access to lawyers and things. So a lot of times minority people. And ultimately that's a large source of income for these smaller towns and smaller groups of law enforcement. It's a large portion, search and seizures are a large portion of their income. Comes down to money every time. But the overall benefit of this is outweighs it all. And what frustrates me is that immediately was coined smokable hemp flower. Yeah, it's smokable, but it's also extractable, it's bakeable, it's eatable, it's whateverable. But it's kind of like the marijuana name it was given. It's already menacing. It's smokable, and smoking's not healthy. We know that.
But in law enforcement, more than anything, that still is probable cause.
Correct.
Probable cause is the gateway to them getting whatever the hell they want out of your car.
Yep. And
looking for it.
Yep. In North Carolina, they can seize your property if they think a crime's been committed. You don't have to be processed. You don't even have to be charged, and you can have your property confiscated.
And that's the result of the Patriot Act, too, folks. Just a little bit of history. When 9/11 happened, they took your freedoms away.
Right.
And this is part of where we're going.
Extended too, by the way. Anyway, another story. But yeah, ultimately, so that's what we're fighting here in North Carolina, smokable hemp ban. It was pushed back now. We won't have another hearing or a vote on it till January. So that's a promising thing. And we're probably calling you guys to come speak again in Raleigh or be part of that thing. But ultimately, these folks, we always joke about how like we didn't choose this industry chose them. And I think kind of the same thing. No background in smoking weed or hemp or anything, right?
You never were a stoner?
Right. Never.
Wow.
Right.
That's amazing.
Never did I think when I was in school studying chemistry that I would end up starting a business that analyzes cannabis. I really
Sure.
did.
Right.
And I happen to follow you guys on Facebook. I just saw you guys were just in Orlando,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
We'll talk about that.
Oh yeah, that was exciting.
Life changing for you, or
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it was nice being around.
What was in
people.
Orlando?
It was the CBD Expo,
Mhm.
and it was in Orlando, Florida, and it was both a convention and a conference. So there were speeches, plus there was a convention floor where you could go walk around and meet vendors and everything else. And I was invited. I was lucky enough to be invited to be a panelist and present on the cutting edge science of cannabis. And so I tell you, it was enjoyable being around articulate people who could really articulate the good benefits and things of that of hemp and CBD. But I tell you, I saw two really cool things at this conference that I was at. One was that they're actually looking at using a nebulizer, which is used for when you have asthma attacks.
Or pneumonia or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Breathing issues, and using that as a delivery mechanism for CBD or hemp in general.
Wow,
Yeah.
that would really work well.
Yeah, and it was a good option, for people that don't or can't smoke, but still kind of want that immediate relief.
Yeah.
And it's different than vaping, right? Where vaping is a heated process, and
sometimes oil based, which is not good.
that's right.
Yeah.
And so I worry that when you heat something that rapidly, that quickly, you might be getting some chemistry changes that might be producing stuff we don't even know that
There's a heavy metal issue too with that as well.
Yep. So that that's a novel delivery. But then the most exciting thing is a company that makes insulin pumps was looking at, and they actually are in process of doing trials now of infusing subcutaneously CBD over a 24-hour period.
That's incredible.
So just a bit of history on CBD. The only legal CBD drug, plant-based CBD drug, is Epidiolex, which was approved for childhood seizures. In the studies that led up to the approval, they noticed one thing that caused them some concern, not enough to stop it. But they said, hey, we've noticed that there is an elevated liver enzymes. And so people with liver disease should really be careful if they're taking Epidiolex. Well, you've only got one liver. If you start taking this Epidiolex as a child, you're probably going to be on it the rest of your life. So there is a concern of what is the long-term exposure to these CBD. And they started studying, and they noticed that the first pass through your liver is only about 4%. So what that means is if you take this drug orally, it gets in your stomach, you've got a lot of blood vessels around your stomach that helps get it into your bloodstream. The first place it goes is into the liver, because we used to eat food that wasn't very clean.
Right. Excuse me, we got a doorbell here.
And so we know that the liver was there to protect us when we were eating toxins and sticks.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what it is. A major filter.
that's right.
Filter for toxins.
So only 4% of the CBD that goes into your stomach makes it past your liver. So you can imagine if you have 100 milligrams, only 4 milligrams is actually getting into your stomach, and the rest of it's being broken down.
Right.
And that's where we worry about the liver coming into it.
Well, it's just like, and I'm gonna tie it in, I'm sorry, but I know I've done my research. Pharmaceutical drugs, that's where they harm you. Kidneys, liver, right?
Absolutely.
Pharmaceutical drugs, folks, kidney, liver. They don't tell you this. So anyway, moving on.
Yeah, no.
And this drug is a pharmaceutical processed drug.
Absolutely.
One of the problems with it is it's an isolate, right?
It is,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, right.
It is. It's a very purified version of that, and it's a very high dose because only 4% makes it in. So they're looking at could we do this subcutaneously, deliver it underneath the skin, just like diabetics do, and then it bypasses the liver, so it gets into the system. You need much less of it. So if you're taking CBD over a longer period of time, if you can reduce the dose, then you're in business, right? Because then you don't have as much toxicity with any type of.
But you don't have any of this toxicity with regular cannabidiol, CBD oil, under the tongue like a tincture, do you?
Well, we don't believe so, but we do know.
They never did a formal test on it, right?
Yeah, that's right. So there's not a whole lot of data out there, but what we do know is that even in your tongue, you're only getting about 4 to 10%. It's not a whole lot better than swallowing it. And so the idea there is, if you're only getting 10% in, then the rest is going to your liver. And so if we can increase the bioavailability, which is the technical term for, if we increase how much gets into your bloodstream, and that's where we're seeing, even today, we see microemulsions of CBD. We see nanotechnologies of CBD. Those are all designed to get more of the CBD into your bloodstream.
So at least we're recognizing the benefits of CBD. That's why everybody's after it.
Absolutely.
And why is that? Because of our endocannabinoid system.
That's exactly
and how it affects our health in general and wellness. It's all about our endocannabinoid system overall and how that affects that, correct?
And you guys are currently working on something that's more water soluble as well too, right? You're trying to work on that.
That's exactly right. We're working on a microemulsion and nanotechnology to try to increase the bioavailability for that very reason. I think we all understand that it's got health benefits, and that was widely accepted at the conference. Now it's how do we optimize the delivery system, right?
And the only thing that concerns the heck out of me personally, it's my problem, I know, but letting big business get a hold of it and alter it to where it becomes another pharmaceutical drug. They charge you out the wazoo for it. They're controlling it. They get all the money, and it's still doing harm to health. And that's the problem with the pharmaceutical industry as a whole. There are some amazing drugs out there, no question. There are life-saving drugs out there. But frankly speaking, across the board, they're few and far between. And that's by doctors. That's been done by research. And it's not joking, folks. I have to say this, probably say it on every show. More people die due to pharmaceutical medications than everything else combined. But you'll never hear that on mainstream media. But it's a fact. Every day in this country, it's appalling. So we've got to be careful and understand why that is. And we don't want CBD to go in that direction. And that's the biggie here.
That's what, and just being in the industry now for 2 years myself, I see the miracles every day. And that's what's so important for what they're doing, to have the scientific research behind it. And honestly, the initial studies even done in the 70s showed a lot of this promise as well, but it was quickly shut down because it didn't fit their agenda. So, what the promising, I just saw today, a lady was awarded $3.5 million for a study on the effects of cannabis with humans. Just this morning I was reading that. So these studies are now being allowed and opened up, and I'm most excited about it because we just know CBD and THC mostly right now, where we're just now starting to get into other cannabinoids, CBN, CBG, and even the products we have right now that have them, people are seeing tremendous results. So I can't wait to see exactly what it is these products are doing and how they're doing it and what amounts we need them. And one thing we are working with, I don't know if I discussed with you guys, is working with a company called Omnia Health, where we're going to start doing DNA swabs, where they do an analysis to see which cannabinoids work best for each of us individualized and in which ratio. So, and it's still an initial works, but we're also trying to work further with the university you guys are with to get further interactions with pharmaceutical drugs and things like that. And we really can't talk too much about it because it's very early stages of that, but the same way these guys kind of jumped in and partnered up to get these answers where we don't have them, I think we're going to continue to do so with the pharmaceutical department of Wingate University, and we'll bring more of that when it comes about. But ultimately, all of this is very important, and for us, they brought us answers where we needed them for our own business, and it's opened our eyes of how bad this industry needs this regulation and these standards to be set. But one thing that kind of blew my mind too, I didn't know, and a lot of people might know this. I was talking to Todd when he started this process, but you go and buy standards of certain things, right? That like that way you have this standard of this is what it's supposed to be when you test it. I didn't know there's companies out there that make these standards. And that was fascinating to me. Did you know that? You buy standards, I guess, to calibrate machines.
Yeah,
right?
so with the instrumentation, we have to know that this peak, so like I said before, the peak comes off at a certain time. Well, how do we know that that peak is what they say it is? So there's a handful. There's not many, and this was actually a topic at the conference too. There were a couple other labs there. There's not a shortage of the cannabinoid standards, but there's definitely not a lot of companies that are really into it right now. And they'll make a lot of the major ones, but as these more minor ones come up and people want to see them, it's harder to get those standards to kind of compare them to, so we can know what we're looking at. But yeah, we'll actually get what they call certified reference material, so we know that this is pure, just this one compound, and then we can kind of compare it to what we're running, and that's kind of how we know, okay, if this peak comes up at 5 minutes, all right, that's the peak.
That's
And our
awesome.
certified reference materials are largest cost.
Oh yeah, they're for some of them, like CBDA, a milliliter is like $200.
Wow.
One little vial, $200.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question on the conference. Were there many doctors, medical there?
There were quite a bit of PharmDs, so
Yeah.
pharmacists with doctorate degrees, and MDs there.
A lot of MDs.
Mm-hmm.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Because I think truly doctors are very interested in the benefits. And years ago, and I'm going to share this story real quick, I went to the doctor. It's been 15 years ago to get a physical. And when I got the physical, he said, you got high blood pressure. Well, I hadn't smoked any marijuana in about 3 weeks because I wanted to be kind of clear. Well, probably a month. I wanted to be clear when I went there. Not for blood testing, because I'm self-employed, it didn't matter. But I wanted to see. And he said, your blood pressure's a little elevated. I said, really? I said, well, I'll fix that this afternoon. He says, what do you mean you'll fix it? I said, well, that's all right. I'll fix it. He said, no. I said, okay, off the record. This is not to go anywhere. I'm going to go buy some pot. And he said, oh, really? He said, why? I said, because it'll bring my blood pressure down. He says, really? He said, Ray, I really appreciate you sharing that because we're not privy to that information. You know, we're doctors. They tell us, and by the way, doctors are taught what they're given, by the people. You're only taught what they want you to know. Like teachers only teach what they can teach, regardless whether it's true or not, right?
That's right.
And that's the way life is. You only know what they teach you. So anyway, I'm sharing him that information, and what happened? I went and bought me some more and smoked it, and what happened? My blood pressure went down. Never been high since. I have, but it hasn't. No, I'm very honest about marijuana, folks, because I'm ADHD, and it's got very good benefits, as Michael is. We're both very active, and it kind of keeps you on target. Not all strains. Some will send you off the chain. But
that's something we're learning too. What works best at which times,
Exactly. Like indica is a sleepy cultivar, where you've got sativa, it gets you up, keeps you alert, keeps you going. But knowledge, folks, knowledge is power, and we've been lied to so bad. And the whole reason I'm here is this man and the passion he has for your benefit and your well-being. And that's tremendous. And if I can share that or be a part of that for you, the listeners, the people of this country and the world, man, that's what it's all about. And you apparently are in the same boat, both y'all.
Absolutely. That's definitely something, because we have that personal connection. We got into this, one, we love science. So, being able to apply that in our real life jobs is definitely good. But, we want to see it be a good industry just because we've seen how much it can help people that we love. And so we definitely want to make sure stuff that other people are taking and stuff that our family is taking is going to help them and not hurt them.
Gotcha.
And I've learned a lot.
Oh, yeah, we've definitely learned a lot.
But on that note, Todd, this is what this show's about, a very low-key, laid-back conversation about realities as we know them, and we're all passionate about what we do. And passion is what makes the world go round. I mean, come on.
My first, I'll be honest, I started this whole thing, I like getting high. I enjoyed it, you know, and over everything else that everybody did, alcohol and all that. But, you know, ultimately, I started seeing the benefits of it. And when people started talking about medical, I was the first one. I was like, oh, this is an excuse for people to get high. But when I saw people with PTSD have relief, and I saw people with cancer have relief, and I saw these miracles happen from CBD, it opened my eyes. And I've got an education now in 2 years. I've immersed myself in it. But the thing is, I tell people, I will be the first one standing in line saying, this was wrong, this was bad, we shouldn't have done this, if we find that. But let us find out. Let us do the scientific research. Let us do the studies. Let us do everything it takes to understand what this plant has to offer. And if we find out it's bad, I'll be the first one standing in line saying it was bad, we shouldn't have done this. But we're not going to find that.
We're not going to find that.
So
that's why they outlawed it to start with in 1937.
Right, because it works.
And remember, got to go over history again,
Right.
just to remind you, before 1900, hemp was the number one cash crop in the United States of America. The number one analgesic in this country, and probably the world, was hemp oil.
Yep.
Where did it go? Aspirin hit the scene about 1903, I believe, and everything changed. Pharmaceutical industry moved in, greed moved in. They literally took control of the medical industry in the mid to late 20s, and in the 30s they converted it all to what they wanted it to be, and here we are.
Here we are.
100 years later.
Now we got 100 years worth of lives to fix, but that's why we're here.
And that's what this is all about. So, anything else we got to cover today, Big Guy?
I think that's it. You guys offer your services to anyone, right? You want to drop some how to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So we're happy to test if you're a grower, a retailer, even if you're a consumer and you're concerned about your product. We're happy to kind of help people
find
out.
your kid's stash. You want to know what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have Instagram, G2 Analytical. We have a website, www.g2analytical.com.
G2analytical.com.
Yep. We're on Facebook, Griffin and Griffin Analytical Associates, and we're happy to reach out to people. They can find us through Charlotte CBD. They're happy to pass along our contact information.
At every one of our locations, we have little vials where we can take a sample of whatever you're taking right there in the store. A few little drops is all it takes.
Yep.
We send it right out to these folks. They can have it tested in a few days' time. And hopefully we'll have all the behind-the-scenes set up soon where we'll have a live, updated list of results and product listings and everything on there. And we're not excluding ourselves from that either. We're going to put every product we offer too. We're consumers as well. If these companies are saying it's in there and it's not, we bought the same product you did. So we're going to expose everything. But if you don't reach out to these folks, you can come by any store and we'll take a sample for you. And I can tell you that it's been amazing. They're very professional, very even. It was hard to believe some of these standards, but they were correct because it's come to find out a lot of these companies have gotten in trouble for what they said are in the bottle. So great people. Thank y'all for being on as always. And Ray, you got something? Anything?
Well, yeah, I want to remind people the podcast will start going up on a YouTube channel.
Yep.
Let's Be Blunt YouTube channel. It'll be coming forth in the next week as well. Posted this podcast will be on letsbeblunt.org as well as cltcbd.com. And all that's in the making, and we're
all
getting
our social media sites, everything. We're gonna boom it and get it out there. And if you folks out there have anybody you'd like to see on the show, any questions you have, write us, send us messages. We'll get you on. We're going to start doing visits to labs and other things as well, so we can get mobile there soon. But we're growing together. But the whole point of this is education and knowledge. And it's great to be in the business and make money and all that, but ultimately we're trying to get answers. What is it that this stuff does? How does it work? Why does it work? Is it safe?
And we're not selling anything.
Yep.
But if you're buying, we want you to buy what you think you're buying.
Yep.
That's the whole gist behind it, is health and wellness.
Yep.
That's what this is all about.
All about.
And we're going to bring you a lot of information down the road. Tell all your friends where we're at, how to get the information, and tell them, like I said, letsbeblunt.org, cltcbd.com. And remember, this show's brought to you by Charlotte CBD and the Hemp Retailers Association. But Charlotte CBD, if you want to take anything you have and have it tested, 3 locations, 2419 Central Avenue, 610 Hardin Street in Columbia, South Carolina, and 505 East Statesville Avenue in Mooresville. Well, I appreciate the knowledge you've shared with us today.
Yeah.
And we'll come down to the lab in
I'm
time
happy to have you.
and bring everybody up to date on that. And we appreciate it. Next Saturday, we're going to light a hemp flower bud here and head out of here. So we'll see you
Watch
next
out.
week.
Thank y'all.
Let's be blunt.